Tonight, the town of Fort Smith in the NWT is in shock after a fatal plane crash.
It's about revitalizing Indigenous ways of knowing and being and our traditions and our system.
And a brand new justice center in Vancouver is helping Indigenous people navigate the justice system.
When First Nations, Inuit and Métis people thrive, it's not just your communities that benefit, but the entire country.
And a boost in funding to help Indigenous people improve their skills training in Quebec. Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Savannah Kelly. The Dene and Métis community of Fort Smith, Northwest Territories is in shock after a fatal plane crash took place on the morning of January 23rd. Our reporter Charlotte Morit-Jacobs brings you more.
4 passengers and 2 crew members on board a flight bound for Diavik Diamond Mine have died. That's according to the Northwest Territories Chief Coroner. In a news release today, Chief Coroner Garth Eggenberger says there was one sole survivor of the crash who was taken to Fort Smith Health Centre and medevac to Stanton Territorial Hospital in Yellowknife. The statement says all family members of all passengers have been contacted by the RCMP. No names were released. The plane was carrying Diavik Diamond Mine employees when it lost contact shortly after takeoff from the Fort Smith Airport runway. The Air Force, RCMP, and Canadian Rangers found the wreckage. The coroner's team was dispatched yesterday afternoon, where they began investigating the Northwestern Air Lease crash with RCMP and the Transportation Safety Board of Canada. Meanwhile, the tight-knit community of 2,200 is grieving. The town of Fort Smith is hosting a gathering at the Recreation Centre today to support everyone affected by the crash. This news release from the town's mayor and council says, "We are all friends, neighbors, co-workers. We understand that you may not wish to be alone right now, that you may want to talk about it with others that are experiencing the same feelings of grief and trauma." Messages of condolences have been pouring in from across the territory, and additional counseling supports have been sent to the community. Charlotte Morit-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Back to our coverage of the inquest into the mass stabbings on the James Smith Cree Nation and in the nearby village of Weldon. Today we're hearing from parole officers who described what took place leading up to the September 4th, 2022 attacks. Our Saskatchewan video journalist Rachel May has more.
Parole officer Natasha Melanson took this stand to describe her experience with the killer in the attacks, Miles Sanderson. At the time he was unlawfully at large, Melanson was Sanderson's parole officer. She described Sanderson as someone who opened up once you got to know him, but noted he could become upset. For approximately 3 months, Sanderson didn't breach his conditions, attended programs, and didn't display any signs of abusing substances. Melanson said that she received a text from Vanessa Burns in May of 2022, Sanderson's ex-partner, that detailed Miles forcing his way into her apartment and throwing objects. The warrant issued by Correction Services Canada for Sanderson's arrest was issued as a result. Melanson said there were no indications that he could be capable of the events that took place on September 4th, 2022. Testimonies continue tomorrow, and we're expected to hear from pathologists to explain the exact cause of death of all 11 victims. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
There was an update this afternoon from the Enoch Cree Nation in Alberta about the possibility that hundreds of children could have gone missing from the old Sacred Heart Indian Residential School. Our video journalist Chris Stewart has that story for us tonight.
From 1898 to 1931, the Sacred Heart Indian Residential School ran on the Saddle Lake Cree Nation. The Ochimawin Abisu Society was formed to recover what they say could be 335 unmarked graves of children who went missing during that time. A year ago, they told APTN that many children died from unpasteurized milk and tuberculosis and were buried outside the school. The society has been using ground-penetrating radar and last October found the skeletal remains of a child no older than 5. Other remains have been found in a very shallow grave wrapped in a shroud. The community wants to find all the remains and perform a forensic recovery this summer. The society is scheduling community meetings around the province with potential relatives of those missing, and they are asking the federal government for financial assistance. Linda Redcrow says the society has denounced the RCMP and the Chief Medical Examiner of Alberta for refusing to help with the recovery.
And the RCMP told us we don't collect old bones from cemeteries. So that's the kind of negligence and institutional racism that the RCMP continued to show towards these children. The Office of the Medical Examiner refused to meet with us. We tried to meet with him for a year to discuss a path forward to get his support, and he absolutely refused to provide it or meet with us.
Red Cross says recovering the bodies has to happen because erosion will soon leave the graves exposed to the elements and wild animals. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
A Winnipeg hotel has shut its doors after facing criticism following a viral video of its staff restraining an Indigenous woman. Tamara Pimentel has more.
A sign posted to the front doors of the Marboro Hotel say, due to maintenance, hotel is out of order. It's not clear if the hotel has been cleared of paying guests or if it's accepting new ones. Police could be seen coming and going while keeping the doors locked. The Marboro is the focus of an investigation following a viral video of an Indigenous woman surrounded by hotel staff. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back. Over 100 people protested in the main lobby on Sunday. According to the hotel and police, she drew a knife and was charged with assault with a weapon. In the comments section of the video posted on social media, the woman claims they were going to take her downstairs while she was passed out in the restaurant waiting for her brother. Let's go! On Sunday, that comment prompted protesters into the basement of the hotel, where they broke through locked doors and lockers. The Marboro houses members of remote Indigenous communities accessing health care in the city. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says they've ended business with the hotel. And yesterday, the Manitoba Kwetenawi Okamakinak says people staying at the hotel could move. A statement reads, "The First Nations Inuit Health Branch has approved your move from the Marboro Hotel, effective immediately." The Marboro has not responded to our requests for comment. Winnipeg police say they are still investigating the incident and will share information as their work progresses. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The province of British Columbia now has 5 Indigenous justice centres aimed at empowering Indigenous people if they have interactions with the criminal justice system. APTN's Tina House has this story.
And I'd like to formally welcome you to the Vancouver Justice Centre. That's going to continue to help our people move forward and break that cycle.
The new Indigenous Justice Centre in downtown Vancouver is one of 5 similar centres all across BC that offers Indigenous people the opportunity to talk with on-site lawyers, as well as learn about their legal options and resources when navigating through the justice system. With Statistics Canada reporting that in 5 provinces across the country, including Nova Scotia, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia, Indigenous people make up 42% of the general population that are incarcerated. Indigenous males make up 77.8% out of a study group of 10,000 inmates.
We have been able to open 5 beautiful Indigenous justice centres across the province, in Prince Rupert, in Prince George, in Merritt, in Chilliwack, and a virtual centre that provides support to people across British Columbia.
And this new location in Vancouver makes it the 5th physical centre that everyone has access to. The province of BC has invested $44 million over 3 years towards the creation of the centres, employing up to 140 people so far.
These new regional IJCs, Indigenous Justice Centres, can be sites for dialogue and support for developing justice solutions at a community level. Partnership on local priorities, expand services, and revitalize legal traditions of the nations that on whose territory we live on.
Corey Wilson, who is the chair of the BC First Nations Justice Council, says these new centres are a major step forward in helping eliminate barriers for people.
The Premier mentioned one thing with the Justice Strategy, which has been fantastic, is it's two-track. It's not just about revitalizing and rechanging or systemically changing the criminal justice system, but it's about revitalizing Indigenous ways of knowing and being and our traditions and our system.
So the wraparound services that Corey speaks about for the people who will come through these doors, those wraparound services out there need to be more accessible. The system needs to change for our people.
5 more Indigenous Justice Centres will be established across BC next year. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
We need to step aside for a short break. Coming up, a new report is outlining the need for dedicated school food programs in Inuit communities. Plus, new funding to support skills training for Indigenous people in Quebec.
Oui, ça a vraiment changé ma vie parce que ça m'a permis de vivre mon rêve et d'être épanouie dans la vie.
Welcome back to APTN National News. Canada's National Inuit Advocacy Organization, Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, or ITK, recently uploaded a 45-page report that outlines the need for dedicated school food programs in Inuit communities. ITK says implementing school food programs for both breakfast and lunch will improve food security and attendance. Inuit face some of the highest food insecurity rates in Canada. It's estimated to cost $1.65 billion to implement and support such a program from 2023 to 2038 across 75 schools in Inuit communities. The report says existing school food programs are to be supported. The federal government is investing $25 million to support skills training for Indigenous people in Quebec. The money will fund the First Nations Human Resources Development Commission of Quebec for their project, Global Strategy for Indigenous Employability. Maricela Amador has the story.
Whether it's smashing rocks, digging in the dirt, or moving heavy objects, Alexia Petitquet-Chilton is loving every minute of her job as a heavy machine operator.
Mon père, il est opérateur depuis des années et j'ai toujours eu cette petite bulle-là de côté à quelque part dans ma tête.
And with financial help of the First Nations Human Resource Development Commission of Quebec, she was able to successfully complete a training program and promptly secured a job in her trade.
Grâce à la subvention salariale de la mesure C1 employabilité, ça fait 1 an que je travaille en tant qu'opératrice de machinerie lourde et je souhaite continuer.
And now, Canada is hoping for more success stories like Chilton's.
When First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people thrive, it's not just your communities that benefit, but the entire country.
During a press conference in the Mohawk territory of Kahnawake, the federal government announced $25 million over 5 years in funding to the Commission to increase the number of Indigenous people in employment or vocational training in both communities and urban areas.
In fact, we are already seeing some positive changes.
Richard Jalbert, the executive director of the Commission, called these programs life-changing.
With the funding, we can pursue many of our regular activities, but more than that, it gives us the means to implement changes, innovate, and advance our mission of training and developing Indigenous employability.
The Commission is part of the Assembly of First Nations of Quebec-Labrador and services 27 communities and 4 urban centers, including Montreal. Mohawk Council of Kahnawake Grand Chief Kasanahawaskai Deer noted that in the past, the labor force in Kahnawake has been excluded from neighboring developments.
We need to have relations with the First Nations, with the Inuit, with everybody, all working together so that we could raise, this profile of where we're all residing together and ensure that there's equal opportunity.
The Grand Chief added that it was never too late to find your passion and contribute to building your community.
Oui, ça a vraiment changé ma vie parce que ça m'a permis de vivre mon rêve et d'être épanouie dans la vie.
Chilton is currently working as a snow removal operator in the city of Trois-Rivières. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Kahnawake.
Dementia is a growing public health issue for Indigenous people, according to a study by the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. The report says that the number of Indigenous people in Canada living with dementia will increase by 273% by the year 2050. For the general population, that number is 187% increase. Dennis Ward spoke with the report's lead author, Dr. Joshua Armstrong, earlier.
Dr. Armstrong, thanks for taking some time for us here.
Thanks for having me.
The chapter on dementia and Indigenous people states that colonization is a root factor of dementia risk. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. I think it's been well recognized by various people in public health that there are a range of different social determinants of health, and when it comes to Indigenous peoples in Canada, colonization plays a key role. In the report, we use a model that really uses a tree as an analogy to show how at the root of a lot of health outcomes are factors like colonialism, and that they have a role to play in health behaviors, education, income, and other aspects of life for Indigenous peoples.
What barriers are there in getting a diagnosis and receiving care for Indigenous peoples with dementia, and what's being done to alleviate that?
Well, it's quite complex, especially if you're not living in large urban centers. It might be challenging to find specialists or healthcare providers that can provide that diagnosis. So I believe there is work being done to try to improve that. We're also seeing new tools that can be used by physicians that are based in various languages, but also provide a better approach from an Indigenous perspective. And these are tools developed by Indigenous peoples and researchers within Canada.
What's something you'd like people to know about dementia?
Well, I think I'd like people to know that while age is the primary risk factor for dementia, as you get older, you increase your risk for developing dementia, but there are a range of actions people can take to lower their own risk, whether that comes from lifestyle choices like more exercise, better sleep, better diet, but also working with physicians to make sure that your health issues like diabetes, high blood pressure, hearing loss are all addressed. These factors together can lead to higher dementia risk. So if we try to actively go against those risk factors, we can lower our risk and hopefully have better brain health later in life.
Dr. Armstrong, important study. Appreciate you taking some time for us here today to talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
A new professional women's hockey league is creating a lot of buzz. We'll speak with some of the Indigenous players in the league coming up after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. From East River, Nova Scotia, Alona Hannah sent us this gorgeous sunset that she was able to capture from her backyard. Thanks for sharing this incredible view with all of us. If you'd like to share a picture, send that photo now to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting off on the east coast, 5 degrees and snowy in Halifax, Charlottetown, +1. Nain, sunshine and -16, Kuujjuaq, -21. Val-d'Or, 0 degrees and snow there, Chibougamau, -4. Toronto, 4 degrees there, North Bay, rainy and +1. Kapuskasing, snowy, 0 degrees, Thunder Bay, +1. Churchill, snowy and -13, Norway House, -4. Gimli, 0 degrees there, Barons River, snowy and -3. Regina, sunshine, 1 degree there, Yorkton, -3. Stony Rapids, snowy and -15, La Ronge, -5. Snowy in northern Alberta, -14 in Fort Chip, -14 in High Level as well. Red Deer, rainy and +2, Calgary and Lethbridge, sunshine, +5 there. Vancouver, rainy and 8 degrees, Canal, sunshine, +3. Fort Nelson, mix of sun and cloud, -15 there, Smithers, snowy and 0 degrees. Mayo, snowy and -30, Old Crow, sunshine and -40 there. Norman Wells, snowy, -29, Wati, -27 and flurries. Paulatuck, snowy and -29, and Nuvik, -33 and sunny. Baker Lake, -30 there, Cambridge Bay, sunshine and -33. Arctic Bay, sunshine, -32 there, and Igloolik, snowy, and -29. A new professional women's hockey league is creating a lot of buzz. The 6-team circuit includes 4 Indigenous players, and the Toronto squad has 2 of them. The team was in Ottawa this week, and our Fraser Needham was there. Here's that story.
Number 51 from Milton, Ontario, Victoria Bach.
Honestly, like words, I can't put it into words how, exciting and special this is for us. And not only like us, but like future generations. Aside from just hockey, like the opportunities that this league is going to create.
That's Victoria Bach, one of 2 Indigenous players on the Toronto team. The other one is Jocelyn Larocque.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, honestly. We get to eat, sleep, play hockey. It's everything that we've dreamt about, and honestly, it's surpassed a lot of my expectations. So every day I feel grateful and just really happy to be part of Toronto, and just looking forward to, every day.
Professional women's hockey has been tried before, but failed. But this time seems different with a league that appears to have some serious financial backing and strong backing from the fans. Since games got underway on New Year's Day, rinks have been selling out in places like Ottawa, Toronto, and St. Paul, Minnesota. Toronto coach Troy Ryan says he's not surprised.
Like anything, if you do put some financial backing and support behind things, generally fans will support it. I think it's always been a great product, and it's just it's taken this PWHL group to put it in the forefront and get it in front of people.
And why wouldn't fans support it? The level of competition is high, and the new women's league contains something not normally allowed at Olympic and amateur levels: body checking.
Physicality, both teams.
Ryan explains it this way.
They also don't want it to be a league that just anybody can play in. You got to be a high-performance athlete, you got to train physically, and you got to be able to play in that type of traffic.
Aside from their duties as players on the ice, both Bach and Larocque have the added duties of being ambassadors of the game for young Indigenous female hockey players. It is a responsibility they take very seriously.
The way that I see it is representation matters. And, if there's a young Indigenous, child out there that dreams of playing professional hockey, they can look to myself, to Victoria Bach, to Abby Rock, all of us Indigenous players, and to be able to see it is huge.
Bach says it is all about being a role model that didn't previously exist in the game.
Now them having the opportunity to have a platform where they can, look and watch us play and, get female role models. I think that was really important, because I know growing up, I'd always idolize like NHL players, people like Matt Sundin, stuff like that, growing up watching them and not really having any female role models, and definitely none that were Indigenous that played hockey.
On the ice, Ottawa edged out Toronto in a close 3-1 game that included an empty net goal. But on this night, it was about more than the results of one particular game. It was about the future of women's professional hockey, which at this moment in time looks incredibly bright.
Jocelyn Larocque and the Toronto team are back home on Friday when they take on New York. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, TD Place Arena, Ottawa.
And that's all the time we have for your midweek news. For news anytime, head on over to our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Savannah Kelly. Marcy, Miigwech, thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great night.